I don't think most people hate themselves. I think they've become comfortable with a version of themselves that they don't respect. And that's different. When I look back at who I used to be, the problem wasn't that I didn't feel anything, because I did. I felt guilt, I felt regret, I felt internal tension when I acted against my values. But I also felt something else. I felt comfortable repeating it. And that's the dangerous part. There's a strange middle ground a lot of people live in. And it's not proud, it's not devastated, it's just being mildly disappointed. And then they just carry on with their lives. They know they drink more than they should, they know they lie when it's convenient, they know they avoid difficult conversations, and they know they chase attention to feel significant. But the discomfort never crosses the threshold required to force change. It's not intense enough, so nothing actually shifts. For a long time, I confused awareness with growth. I thought because I knew I was acting below my potential, that actually counted as progress. It didn't. Self-awareness without behavioral change is literally just observation. You can be fully aware of your weakness, but you can still protect it. And that's something that I did. Here's what I actually realized. The real issue wasn't that I lacked discipline, it's that I lacked intolerance. I tolerated breaking promises to people. I tolerated emotional impulsiveness. I tolerated inconsistent standards. I tolerated behavior I would have criticized in someone else. And that hypocrisy, it eats at you quietly. You expect people to act within your standards, but then you give yourself leeway. You grant yourself softness. There's a line that most people never cross. The line where weakness becomes unacceptable. Not embarrassing, not unfortunate, unacceptable. When something becomes unacceptable internally, you stop negotiating with it. Before that point, everything you do is negotiable. You could say that you'll fix it later. You could say that it's not that serious. Negotiation is comfort. Having standards removes negotiation. I didn't change when I felt inspired. I changed when I got tired of negotiating with myself. When I realized I was having the same conversations with myself over and over. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. I'll do better next time. And then I wouldn't. The repetition, it withers away at your self-trust. And once self-trust erodes, confidence just becomes a performance. You look composed to other people. You sound composed to other people. But internally, you know that you don't follow through. And that exhausts you. Because I know it exhausted me. Most young people don't need to feel worse about themselves. They need to stop being comfortable with being mediocre with their own behavior. There's a quiet decay that happens when you repeatedly act below your own expectations. You don't dramatically collapse, you just become dull. You become slightly less sharp, slightly less decisive, slightly less proud. And over time, that builds up, it compounds. The shift for me wasn't dramatic self-hatred, it was a quiet internal decision. I just said to myself, I'm done being someone that I don't respect. I didn't announce it to my friends, I didn't post it on my story, I just said it to myself privately. And once that decision was made, the criteria changed. It stopped being, do I feel like doing this? And it became, this is who I'm trying to be. The question removes emotion from the equation. There is something powerful about holding yourself to a higher internal bar than the world requires. The world doesn't demand that much from you. You can lie occasionally, you can be a little bit inconsistent, you could have one too many drinks, you could blame your circumstances, and you can still function. But functioning isn't the same as self-respect. Most people are functioning. Very few are actually aligned. If you feel slightly uncomfortable watching this, then that's not actually a bad sign. It just means there's a little bit of friction between who you are and who you could be. The worst position to be in isn't one where you're constantly beating yourself up. It's just indifference, when nothing actually bothers you and when acting below your standards just feels normal. That's when your standards have actually collapsed. You don't need dramatic self-loathing, you need disciplined intolerance. Intolerance for breaking your word, avoiding responsibility, seeking validation at the expense of integrity, choosing comfort over growth, not emotionally, not violently, calmly, with clarity. Most people don't hate themselves enough. They don't dislike their weaknesses enough to remove them, and until weakness becomes something you refuse to coexist with, it will quietly ruin your life. The day that you stop negotiating with the version of yourself that you've outgrown is the day you start rebuilding. not loudly, but permanently.